A few moments ago, you mentioned the issue of legislative tyranny, which leads me to ask, what did the framers think about legislative power, and what questions did organizing the legislative branch raise?
The delegates were certainly concerned about legislatures going unchecked. That's the legislative tyranny concern, or rushing to judgment. They also raised the question of precisely how to grant powers to the national legislature, to the Congress. Should those powers, for example, be only enumerated powers, powers that were listed and beyond which the legislature could not go? They had learned from the Articles of Confederation that the problem with enumerated powers was that it left the legislature with very little possibility of enforcing the laws it passed. So they wanted to create some balance between enumerating specific responsibilities and powers of Congress and providing Congress with some kind of broader grant of power that allowed it to enforce or to legislate the enforcement of the powers that were listed. And that's how we get the necessary and proper clause of the Constitution. That is, Congress has the power to pass acts that are necessary and proper for exercising the foregoing powers. So it's not a unilateral or sweeping grant of power, but it is a kind of broad grant of power linked to the existing powers that are listed.
So why two houses of Congress instead of one?
The delegates at Philadelphia were trying to create a balance between a legislature that was capable of making laws and one that would think twice, literally, before creating potentially rushed laws. And I think that's the biggest reason. Each house creates a check on the other house, just as then the president, through his power to sign or veto laws, creates a check on Congress, and then Congress has a check back on the president with the opportunity to override a veto.
Let's talk about parliamentary systems just for a moment. Can you explain the strengths and weaknesses of a government with separated branches in comparison to those in a parliamentary system?
In a parliamentary system, the executive branch, by definition, is controlled by the party that controls the legislative branch. That is, the head of the governing party in the legislature becomes the prime minister, the head of the executive branch. So if you want to get laws passed, then a parliamentary system might be preferable to the system that we have of checks and balances. If, however, you want to keep laws from getting passed, or keep particular laws from getting passed, you might find the system that we have quite amenable to your interests. It often depends on the side that a person is on, whether they want to see a law passed, in which case our system seems rather cumbersome, or whether they'd like to see something stopped, in which case our system seems like a brilliant act of the framers.